Okay, hello everyone. Good evening and good morning, maybe to Parineeta because she's joining us from the US. Thanks for joining this conversation today. सभी को नमस्ते और जिंदाबाद. धन्यवाद ये कॉन्वर्सेशन आज ज्वाइन करने के लिए. हम शुरू करेंगे एक इम्पॉर्टेंट मैसेज से कि एज अ ग्रुप एंड नेटवर्क जो ये वेबिनार ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहे हैं नेशनल अलायंस फॉर पीपल्स मूवमेंट विकल्प संगम नदी घाटी मंच वी स्टैंड इन सॉलिडारिटी विद व्हाट्स हैपनिंग इन लद्दाख स्पेशली all the resistance peaceful movement that has been unfolding there for a long time and strongly condemn what is being done to local people and Gandhian activist Sonam Wangchuk. So just showing solidarity and support for them and what they've been doing to protect their environment and ecology. Um, और उसके साथ ही आप सबको वेलकम करेंगे फॉर दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन ऑन रिवर्स. इट्स अ it's not easy to have this conversation, especially because of the times we are in, where there's so much happening around us and there's so much crisis to the mountains and to the ecosystems that we are all dependent on. But we also feel that it is important to talk about how the rest of nature is alive. The
नमस्कार.
the rivers are alive, and that we need to talk about what it means if they're alive, what needs to change in the way we are governing, what needs to change in the way we are going about in our actions, in our governance, but also what we are doing in the name of development. So we will be talking about rivers are alive, and what you can expect is that both Parineeta, Alyen, and I will be in a conversation for about 40-50 minutes or so. And then we will open this space up for all of you to also join in this conversation with us. If you have questions, if you have reflections, I'm sure all of you do, to then engage with us in this conversation. What does it mean to say when rivers are alive, but also being mindful and wakeful of the context in which we are speaking. So we will also reflect upon what needs to happen, especially what has happened in the Himalayas this season in the monsoons. Is quite a reflection of how we actually don't treat rest of nature rivers as alive. And so what and needs to be done to strengthen our struggles, to strengthen our movements, to really bring this worldview at the center of all our struggles, and consider rivers as living beings or not. And what does that mean to change then the discourses that we are involved in? So before we start that, I'll just introduce myself also and my co-speakers, Alyen and Parineeta. So I'm Shrishtee. I am right now joining you from Pune, and I work with an organization, Kalpavriksha, and a network called Vikalp Sangam. I'm a researcher, writer, activist who's working on issues of social environmental justice and trying to understand what does it mean to say when we say rights of rivers and also systemic alternatives. And I have two really amazing people, women who have joined this conversation. I'm a real great admirer of their work and of all that they say and the wisdom that they carry. Parineeta is with Sandra for the past 15 years, and I'm sure many of you would know her for her work in rivers governance, specifically on the issues around free flowing rivers, e flows, freshwater biodiversity, and community conservation. And her writing is simply beautiful. So, and listening to her is even more beautiful. So, we look forward to that. And Alyen Foning is a textile artist, storyteller from Kalimpong. Rooted in Lepcha shamanic lineage, her work bridges ancestral memory, nature, and feminine sacredness. A graduate of NID Ahmedabad, she creates some beautiful installations, crafts, and immersive experience that honors ecological and culture continuity through art, ritual, and community collaboration. and she's such a wise elder sister to me. So I'm so happy that both of you agreed at a short notice for this conversation. And I would like to start with first sharing something that over the last few years, while we have been traveling to Ladakh, doing these walks along the Indus River, um, trying to understand people's relationship with the river and how they relate, how they have made stories around the rivers, how that relationship has changed because of the changing environment and climate. Really seeing how people really understand the river. And one very interesting revelation for me was when they called Indus not a river but a darya. And I kept wondering, along with other colleagues, Ashish is here also, that why would they call it the river Darya and why not Nadi? And the answer was that the river is so big, so vast, so long. And how can a river be just a Nadi? Nadi is some Nadi that's flowing in our village. So it's like a sea, it's a Darya, it's so big. And in many of those conversations, I've been asking up and talking about rights of rivers. Do they think that the river Indus has rights? And what would that mean? Really trying to understand from their perspective. And recently, in our conversation in one of the villages that are on the banks of the river Indus, one older person said to us that the river Indus, for many generations, has believed to be medicinal, and it has the power in such a way that it is actually, they believe it's a prasad from glaciers and a power that makes Ladakhis brave. And so they have they drink Indus water, or they used to drink Indus water, and hence what they were brave. And now they can't because the river is so polluted, so they don't know whether they are brave anymore or not. But essentially, in many of these conversations, what we are really understanding and finding is that the river is not just a water flowing from one source to the other. River is so much more. River is meaning making, river is sense making, river is also about one's identity of who we are, whether we are brave or not. But its river is many ways alive. It has agency. It's a living being in itself. And one very beautiful thing is that a young girl in a government school village told us in a remote village in Chumatang, where again we were talking about rights of rivers, said that the river has a right to sing. And that took some of us who were having that conversation by shock. Like, why would she say something like that, you know? And as we prodded her more, she said, because the river, flows through so many, you can hear her right now, but also when it hits the stones, the way birds wade through its waves, all of this makes the river sing, and you can hear it. And those, in very beautiful, simple ways, people have articulated that relationship of rivers being alive, that they speak to us in some ways. And I'm wondering, both of you, through your lived experiences, through your research, through your writing, through different ways of expression, also articulate this through your work, but also through your maybe embodied ways of being. And I'm wondering whether, Parineeta, I would like to start with you. Through so many ways of your research, writing, and explorations, you have also articulated of how rivers are alive. And it's not something that's a question, but it's an obvious truth, and it is manifested in so many different ways. But if you could elaborate and share with us about how, through your work, you have discovered writing, research, expressions of people believing that the rivers are alive and living that as a worldview, which is, of course, going through massive changes and has become merely a performance. But we'll get back to that maybe on the later half of this session. But if you could elaborate more of what you have explored and understood about and around this idea of rivers as living beings, or rivers are alive. And then, Alyen, I'll come to you.
Thank you so much, Shrishti. Hello, Alyen. And I see so many of my friends, colleagues, and co-travelers here. I'm very glad to see all of you here. And This is a very interesting topic for me. Also because I'll be very honest here. Also because I've always been in two minds about how to approach it. Uh, but by now, after working about 20 years around rivers, I've realized that it really doesn't matter. You don't have to analyze each thing to its smallest constituents. On the other hand, when you're dealing with something like rivers, uh, with each passing day, the question in front of you is how big is what you're dealing with? Can you actually talk about a stream, or do you have to talk about a rivulet, or a river, or a catchment, or a basin, or the sky, or the atmosphere, uh, or the earth itself? And it just so rather than cutting it into parts, each passing day it becomes bigger and bigger. It encompasses more and more things, living things, non-living things, and the universe around us. Uh, Having said that, you know, in most of the communities that we've met, that we've talked with, the question of river being alive is, as Srishti said, it is so obvious, it is so taken for granted. And then, I've also unerringly seen that as you go away and away from the river, and your realms of abstractions increase, the distance increases, your communication starts becoming more and more distant. And you reach to a place where you actually think that thinking of something like river being alive is, you know, is they cannot comprehend it. And I very honestly think that this is directly in proportion with your distance with the river. Uh, Also, that uh, I would definitely, I would love to, spout examples of how we have always, this, uh, I always believe that the South Asian subcontinent of ours, guarded by the Himalayas and the Ganga and the Indus and its tributaries, it's a very remarkable place. And people here have really a distinct relationship with rivers as compared with the other world. I'm not sure why that happened, when that happened, how that happened, but it is definitely pretty distinct. And when you start with the oldest of the texts that we have, it might be, Ahura Masa, it might be the Rig Veda. The way they deify rivers is, of course, in terms of goddesses, but is also in terms of friends. And I think the and I've also been through so many communities where they treat rivers as friends, as at par, as equals. And when it is being equal with the river, it's not always praise. Sometimes it's irritation, sometimes it's complaints, sometimes it's cribbing, sometimes it's outright swearing, which you find in songs in Bengal. And all of that is very close to the ecology of the river. Uh, and there is a distinct difference between the institutionalized religion with its Ganga Aartis, Brahmaputra Aartis. They even have a Godavari Aarti. I'm shocked to know that. I've lived in Godavari, I've been born on the banks of Godavari, and I never knew that there was a thing like Godavari Aarti. But the institutionalized religion and the institutions around it would love to straitjacket the river in the name of deification. That is definitely not personification. These are two very distinct things. When you treat the river as a friend, and when you treat a river as a goddess or consider it as a goddess. Uh, Rigveda starts with this very beautiful discussion between Vishwamitra and two rivers which are Vipas and Shatadru, that is Bias and Satlaj. And Vishwamitra tells the rivers, please stop your flow. And then they say that when we are in floods, we cannot stop. And the image that comes up in mind is the Bias that is flowing right now in Himachal, Bias and Satlaj and Ravi, which claimed more than 450 lives this time in Himachal. Uh, and they tell Vishwamitra, we cannot stop right now. And they talk about Indra. They talk about how Indra broke the dams that held the rivers back, and now the rivers are charioting further to the sea. And it is a very beautiful line. And then the rivers also tell Vishwamitra, never forget this and never bring us to the level of arrogant humans. Remember our story. Remember that Indra once broke us from our shackles and we flow forth. That poem, it's nothing less than a poem. It is, in many senses, the start of how we have been treating rivers. And every time I see a dam breaking, I remember Indra. I remember rivers breaking their shackles and flowing forth. Uh, and in all of the classical texts, from Rigveda to Ramayana to Uttar Ramcharit, uh, to Guru Nanak's extolation and his friendship with Ravi, we come down to stories of rivers, where rivers again, and these are the stories that I've been working on Chenab and Jhelum and rivers in the Himalayas with Srishti for a while now, and it is so natural for people there to talk about Darya as their friends in their backyard. But it's not only Himalayas, it's also my place in Maharashtra where two rivers meet, and there is a temple not of two goddesses, but of two friends, Krishna and Koina, with their arms around each other. It is a very beautiful statue. I would love to share it with you. Uh, so, yes, we have always had deification of rivers, but deification and personhood is something very, very different, something which we understand. If you look at the Bengali songs of rivers, they don't they are nothing like artis. They talk about Sarbonasha Podda Nadi. They talk about Podda, oh you destructor, and they go on, hurling, accusations to the river as if the river is an equal. And the common base of all these things is an equal relationship of the communities with the river. And the problem which happened and which has happened is that the communities have absolutely no say in the matter in which the rivers are being used, being treated, or being assaulted. It might be in Himachal Pradesh, it might be in Karnataka, it might be in Maharashtra, and we are seeing what happens as a result of all of these things. Uh, we'll come down to discussions. I would love to listen to what Alyen has to say, but we'll come down to discussions of how to actually, I would love to hear your thoughts about how to actually operationalize the principles of personhood of rivers or nature. So, yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Parineeta. Yeah, so we'll come to discuss about how do we really do this, operationalize some of the efforts that are being made in other parts of the world. But the questions those efforts, especially around rights of members, raises overall about governance itself, which you've already highlighted. But also some other transformative aspects that need to happen in terms of the economies we have, in terms of cultural and social issues that we uniquely experience in India and South Asia that need to be spoken about when we are talking about rights of rivers. So we'll come maybe to that towards the second half. But now I'll welcome Alyen and would love to hear, Alyen, your thoughts around the first question.
Okay, am I unmuted? Yeah. Okay. So I'm Alyen, and I come from Kalimpong. I think I'd like to explain where I come from. I think I'd like to shortly share that I come from a place of having been completely disconnected from myself and from nature due to, and my tribe, due to migration and so many other distractions. So for me to share this um, point of view of rivers being alive comes from a place of trying to understand
आणि
how we're
ह्याच्यात
connected
पण
to
साड्या
nature.
चांगल्या आहेत. मी सगळं स्वतः
Um,
करून आणले कशात
so I
पण मी
kind of
बाहेर
went searching and meeting elders and shamans of our tribe and learning about the rivers, since we're speaking about rivers. But like Parineeta said, it's not just rivers. For us, Kongchen Konglo, which is Kanchenjunga, is our guardian deity, and that's where the river comes from. That's where the first humans were created from the snow, sacred snows. That's where our ancestors go to after they die. And our sacred lakes, peaks, and caves are there. And then the water flows downwards, and the story of the male river and the female river, one guided by a serpent and one by the Himalayan monal, and how they meet, and the stories of the Great Flood, but also along the way, how they're meeting one carrying the memory of our ancestors and the place where we go to, and very primal memories, and then meeting all the other forest deities and beings, and also as humans, animals, plants, and meeting and collecting all of those memories and coming, say, to the confluence. And for us as a people, it is a really important part of our identity and of our spiritual being. Because also at the confluence of the river, other than what I spoke about, all of the forests and the mountains, is that we used to have our birth ceremony that happened there, and we were introduced to the rivers, and they in turn would connect us to our ancestors, and our marriage ceremonies happened there. We have something called a life ceremony, which our shamans perform, and you can share your lives with them at any point and as many times as you like. And also our death ceremony, which is such an important how would you say, rite of passage, and moving to the other side, the bridge. The first bridge of the afterlife happens at the confluence of the river. So not only is there so many memories there, Rongit and Rongyu, the male and the female rivers, and to us they're beings who are alive and who help sustain us and who carry so much of our history, so much of our memories, and also, asking about our well-being, providing us water and food and air, and eventually once the rivers become one, they join the sea and the ocean, and then once again you have condensation, and it returns back to the mountains, and all of this memory kind of keeps moving in cycles. So I think it is so important for us, and they're alive, and we worship them, we revere them and offer our prayers and respects to them. And to us, they are alive and they're beings who take care of us. So I think what I'd like to share is that it is now that I find out, because I've been so disconnected, it is so important to remember them and know what we used to be with them in connection and in harmony and in reciprocity. And that's something I do with the work. And it's kind of like almost like after a big intense wake up call. It's one of the things that I feel. So I come from a space of kind of using the art and the storytelling, and I wouldn't even say using, that's not a good word, expressing through these mediums our connection to them. Because if we want to speak about rivers or even protect them, I mean, they're very powerful. They can do it themselves. But I think that disconnection and that gap that we have now is something that the younger ones, that's what I feel, um, have forgotten. And that's what I do with the work. So for us, now that I have learned and I'm learning more through the elders and the shamans, it's understanding that they're alive, and in fact, they are to be revered and honored because they love and protect us and nourish us. Um, so immediately there's like no question. Rivers, water, forests, all kinds, and for us, even the unseen world and deities that protect those worlds exist. And they're sad cases or incidents of, say, damming happening or tunnels being burrowed into the mountains, and people see these flashes of lights and um, leaving. So there are deities that are protectors that are also leaving as we speak. It is very alarming to see because we're changing the balance of things, and we have really, really um, ruined it. So I think I don't know from the governance aspect so much, and I'm not going to like lie about it, but more the remembrance deep inside that each one of us has, primal memories. So I think remembrance is something that speaks to me a lot, and I feel like a deep need and a calling to do that. So yeah, I think the question you asked, Shrishti, that would kind of be my answer to that question. And I think I come from a different perspective. And in a way, this path for me is a very spiritual one, connected to also the shamanism of my tribe, which I follow. And it is not separate. Like Parineeta said, she just hit it. I was about to, like, I was thinking it, and she said the same thing. So it's not one, it's not just water, it's everything, including us, and we have an active part to play in this. Yeah, so I think I will end with that, but definitely we're part of it and we return to it.
थैंक यू अलियन। um, मैं थोड़ा संक्षिप्त में इसका अनुवाद करने की कोशिश करूंगी जो परिनीता ने और अलियन ने बोला है। तो परिनीता ने स्टार्ट किया था, मैं सिर्फ जो मुख्य पॉइंट्स हैं उन्हीं को बोलूंगी, सारी चीजें तो नहीं ट्रांसलेट कर सकती। परिनीता ने स्टार्ट किया था ये बोल के कि जिस तरीके से रिवर्स कहीं जहाँ पे भी उन्होंने काम किया है, जहाँ पे भी वह गई हैं, वहां पे नदियां जिंदा हैं। ये एक सच्चाई है जो हर जगह है। और एक नदियां जिंदा है एक बात है, बट नदियों के साथ हमारा रिश्ता है। और वो रिश्ता कई बार सिर्फ एक गॉडेस का रिश्ता नहीं है कि वो देवी है, ये रिश्ता नहीं है। वो एक सहेली का भी रिश्ता है जिससे आप शायद गुस्सा हो सकते हैं, जिससे आप परेशान हो सकते हैं, पर वो रिश्ता है। और शायद वो रिश्ता आज के समय और आज के परिप्रेक्ष्य में वो रिश्ता बदलता जा रहा है या भूला भी जा रहा है। पर जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात परिनीता ने हमें याद दिलाई है कि वो जो रिश्ता जो लोग सदियों से रखते हुए आए हैं, वो उस रिश्ते को मेंटेन करने में या जो निर्णय लेने की प्रक्रिया है उसमें कहीं शामिल ही नहीं है। तो जो समुदाय उस रिश्ते को बनाते हैं या उन पर विश्वास रखते हैं, उन उन समुदायों की आवाज निर्णय प्रक्रिया में कि उन नदियों को क्या हो रहा है या उनके आसपास के जंगलों, खेतों और खलिहानों को क्या हो रहा है, उसमें उनकी आवाज सुनने को नहीं मिलती है। अलियन जो हमारे साथ कालिम्पोंग से जुड़ रही हैं, वो अपनी समुदाय लेप्चा समुदाय के बारे में और उनकी सोच के बारे में कि वो नदियों को कैसे देखते हैं उसके बारे में बता रही थी। और वहाँ की क्या कहानी है जिसमें सिर्फ नदियां ही नहीं बल्कि पूरी प्रकृति जीवित है। और वो जो परिनीता पहले कह रहे थे कि सिर्फ नदियां नहीं बट सब कुछ जीवित है। और इसी जीव पूरा जब प्रकृति जीवित है तो उसमें आप सब कुछ बचाते हैं और उसमें सब कोई कहानियां बनती हैं। तो उनके लिए उनकी शामनिक प्रैक्टिस से ये कहानियां बताना अपनी आने वाली पीढ़ी को कि उनका समुदाय कैसे देखता है नदियों को, कैसे देखता आ रहा है, और उन कहानियों को नई पीढ़ी तक ले जाना और उसके साथ साथ ही उस उन कहानियों को अपनी जो रोजमर्रा की प्रैक्टिस है उसमें भी लाना, ये अलियन का काम पे वो फोकस करती हैं। और ये उनके लिए एक आध्यात्मिक काम है, ऐसा अलियन ने बोला। सॉरी अलियन एंड परिनीता इफ इन केस बिकॉज ऑफ दिस ट्रांसलेशन आई हैव मिस्ड सम इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट्स, बट आई होप आई हैव कवर्ड समथिंग। So I think what both of you have said is so important in terms of essentially about that the rivers are alive and the relationship, the kinship, the relational aspect that we have always lived with in India, in South Asia, in Southeast Asia, but also in other parts of the world. This relational aspects have always existed with the rivers. But we also see, especially in the context, I think it's such a amazing context here where we live, is that rivers are sacred. What Parineeta you were saying, that they are goddesses and they're revered. But there's something essentially performative about it, that we can go to extremely polluted Yamuna River and pay our homage to that river. But yet we don't see, or we, even if we see, somehow we feel helpless that we can do anything about a polluted Yamuna or a dammed Ganga or any other such river. So there is a conflict of how and what we see sacredness is, where it is performed in terms of some rituals, but then the discourses that follow are different, which are, of course, because of the larger governance crisis that we face in this country of colonial legacy with which many of our institutions still work, or the regulatory failure that the local communities that you were earlier saying are not involved, or this, of course, the growth and development model that we continue to acquire and work with. But also conservation of rivers is considered as just a piecemeal work which doesn't really changes any reality of the rivers. So in that context, what does it really mean to talk about rivers having rights? They always have had, people have lived with those worldviews. But our current laws and policies about even protection of the environment have been used to sanction environment destruction rather than protect it. And people's worldviews, what Alyen was sharing from Lepcha community, but also in many other parts of the country, those worldviews of reciprocity, interdependence don't find any meaning, or maybe they are good to say or talk about, but they don't translate in the institutions. And that's what we see, what's happening in Himachal Pradesh, what has happened in Uttarakhand, or the crisis of the decision making that is completely devoid of these worldviews. So, what do you think needs to change? And of course, I'm not expecting you guys to give all the answers, because there's much more bigger things that need to transform here. But can rights of nature discourse as it is unfolding, say, in the West, can that be an answer? Or do we need something else? Or do we, how do we deal with what's happening around us? And yeah, how do you make sense of it? Maybe that's my question to Parineeta. Maybe we can start again with you and then Alyen.
Uh, Thank you, Srishti. These are very important questions. Also very important because you hit the nail when you said that, and I'm sorry, I might be, some people may not like uh, uh, what I'm about to say, but the way the personhood of rivers movement has been unfolding in the West is very different than how it can possibly unfold in South Asia and in countries like Pakistan, where Sindhu Darya is, where Sindhu Darya is a syncretic deity in many senses, or in Nepal or Bhutan or in India, with so many religions coming together when it is one river. Um, the fact is, there are what I've realized is sacredness is can be divided into two very distinct features when it comes to rivers. Like I said, one form of sacredness is a form of control. It is a form of control when you say that all rivers are Ganga, and so you change the name of Ministry of Environment Forest into Ministry of Environment Forest and Ganga Rejuvenation, then talking only about that Ganga. When it is a form of institutionalized, controlled based sacredness, then you have Ganga Aarti on the banks of Ganga, Upper Ganga Canal, when the actual Ganga is drying. The actual river is drying on the side of the devotees, right on the side. But they are still performing Ganga Aarti on Ganga Canal. This institutionalized sacredness can be seen in Ramkund or especially in Kumbh Mela when Godavari is bone dry last Kumbh Mela, and water was poured into Ramkund using tankers from borewells, but the devotees did not care a damn about it. Or when in Pushkarolu Mela, also on the banks of Godavari, there were actually shower heads set up on the banks, and the Godavari was bone dry in the middle, and the devotees again did not care because that currency of sacredness is punya. That sacredness has nothing to do with the river. It has a lot to do with the punya that the devotees are collecting and hoarding. And that's why that sacredness does very little for the rivers. Not only does it do very little, at many times, that sacredness actually, uh, uh, you know, can kill a river. In many senses, Ganga is killed because it is so sacred in the centralized, institutionalized manner. And that is why sacredness of Tista in the upstream, where it is actually protected by lecture efforts, is very different than a Ganga action plan or than a Namami Gange program. So I think the eco-cultural approach towards river conservation is very different than the religious approach towards river conservation. But this eco-cultural approach towards river conservation, which talks in the language of sacred pools, which talks in the language of Mahasir fish, which talks in the language of sacred origins, riparian groves, confluences, meeting of river with the sea, groundwater springs which are sacred, that is the language of magic. That is where religions are coming together. That is where communities are coming together. That is where people are talking about not a Ganga water sample in their homes, in their, uh, in their with their frames of their gods, but of that specific ecosystem there. And uh, that is the form of a sacredness and eco-cultural worship of rivers, which is so specific to South Asia, which again, it's nothing to do with only Hinduism. You see it in Sikhism, you see it in Islam, you see it in Buddhism. In Buddhism, one of the cornerstones of the legal battle of Nyamjangchu was actually the black-necked cranes landing on the riparian banks of Nyamjangchu. And if you see, Srishti, you've seen the Buddhist reflections about rivers in Ladakh. I have seen fish sanctuaries in Islam on the banks of Jhelum. I've seen when they say that uh, the fish from the springs are halal to see but haram to eat. That is conservation that day. And this is Islam talking about river conservation. And it is talking about species, it is talking about rivers, it is not talking about symbols. It is not talking about pratik. Whenever discussion goes into pratiks, it's a problem because it is always a compromise and a give and take. And so I also would like to say that all of the sacred sites around rivers, they function in a form of an economic system, right? So you have the Tirtha Kshetra, which is an economic system. Why do you have so many Gangas and Godavaris and Bhagirathis all across India? Because that is an economic currency of sacredness. But when you talk about local river names, when you talk about Pagala, Mathabhanga, Urmodi, Doifodi, Datpadi, and all those weird, strange names of rivers which are so local, they may not be sacred. Many of the times they are not sacred. They are just wild and sort of problematic. But that's what makes them really special. And if through this discourse of personhood, if we in India and South Asia are able to devise our own personhood, which talks with the eco-cultural practices of communities. So if we are able to protect, I saw riverine deities, which are in the form of a river and pebble. It's so beautiful. I would love to share the pictures. And then when you're protecting that deity, you're actually protecting the riverine pool. So if we adopt the concept of personhood to our own context of this very chaotic and special land, then I think there is a lot that we can achieve. But I have I'm a bit hesitant about the legal personhood discourse which comes from the West, because I think, the problem is, you look at environment governance, you had Italian Dam, and then you have compensatory afforestation, ek ped maa ke naam. You have like madness going on, even with existing robust environmental legal system, which has been there for more than 70 years now. And so I think it's important to build on what we have. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Parineeta. I think that's a very important point that you are making, that it needs to be built on the worldviews and the eco-cultural realities that we are living in. And that would also warrant a lot of important questions around, especially, I think, because of the interfaith dimension of our reality, that how does it become not just because the Uttarakhand judgment that came out in 2017 recognizing the river Ganga and Yamuna as living beings, and also their originating glaciers, only had the element of how these two rivers are sacred for Hindus. And that is a big problem, especially for a country like India, where there's so many communities for whom wherever they are, the river that flows through their landscape is Ganga, is as important as Ganga to them. So that is a very important element for us to even think about in personhood. But even more important, and I think something that we can talk maybe later once also others in the conversation are able to join. What does it really mean to recognize rivers' personhood beyond our borders, which Lalita ji, I think, very early on raised on about the bioregional aspect of this. The rivers are not necessarily following any nation state borders, and so if we recognize the personhood status or give rights to rivers, say in India, for say Indus, what does it mean for China? What does it mean for all the regions that these rivers flow into, which are not just about one nation state? And what sort of collaborations then are needed between these countries as well? But we can get maybe to this element later. Alyen, I would welcome you maybe to also respond to this question and would, yeah.
So the way I kind of connect with this is at like the very core and the very base is that of our connection to rivers. Here we are people, some of us who are highly driven, highly moved, many people who've read and are academic people or are doing research and but I'm when I look at this, I look at this as a larger common man, every child, every mother, every person who've kind of gotten disconnected from the river. Most people do not bother. Most people do not understand or question. So I think, like for me, instead of the things that we can do, because that's a place where I've not delved into very deeply at this point, is again the point of understanding our connection so that we understand deeply what it means when the river is being dammed or when things are happening to the river. So I think the problem for me lies before all of that, and this connection and forgetfulness that we have. So I think I am at a place where I'm looking at that aspect a lot. And how do we bring awareness and how do we bring reconnection and how do we bring a kind of oneness, because water is water and water is the same everywhere, whether it's a small rivulet, it's a small stream, a natural water spring or a big river. So I think for me the disconnection and the point to focus is at the point of awareness and reconnection. So I cannot comment about what can we do, but I can um, try and see where and how can we bring that back again. I think I would look at that aspect a lot more because it's a personal way of moving forward and searching and understanding. And I think I'm at that place in my life, and that's what I think I find is the biggest hurdle, because we mindlessly throw trash into the river. Dams are being built, but nobody is bothering about it.
Alyen, I don't know if my
I think I
froze. Okay, okay. Alyen, you froze. We didn't hear you after you said dams are mindlessly being built.
Okay, so I was just saying that for me, like the point of questioning and point of focus is also because of the way I search and I've been moving forward in my life, is that disconnection or that reconnection is about the awareness of what is happening, because the common folk, even my mother, even my siblings, they're not. Um, I wouldn't say not bothered, but it's not important. So there are people here on this forum who are here or who are talking and discussing because we're interested. But then the larger community, more voices, more efforts to clean the rivers, for example. So I feel like that is a point for me to begin of that reconnection and of that awareness of what is happening.
Yeah, thanks, Alien. I think that brings us to also the maybe next part that I wanted to get into with both of you also. That one that I'm reminded of this struggle that happened in New Zealand around, Iwi Maori people, the indigenous to that region, fighting for a long time for getting the rights of Wanganui River and its ecosystem recognized, and in a way arguing for their worldview of that we are the river and the river is us. And Parineeta, what you were saying, that river is not just about a stream, but it's also an ecosystem in itself, and so it's a lot more than just normally what is defined as a river. And so I'm curious to know that what maybe what Alien you were already maybe highlighting is that there's something else that needs to change, which is not just about our relationship with the institutions that are governing and who is being able to be part of it, but something more fundamental also in terms of how we relate to our rivers wherever we are, even being right now from, say, joining from Pune or other places wherever people are. There is a fracture that has happened in that relationship. The more it's not just about the distance from the river, but distance from just not realizing consciously and with cognizance of it that nature is all around us. Even in the cities, there are rivers, there are forests, there are other ways that nature is trying to maybe speak to us, but we are so far away and unmindful of what's around us. So what needs to change also maybe in our everyday ways, that Alien, what you were saying, of mending that relationship that has completely fractured, what we need to do, and which just not means mending that relationship, but also standing in solidarity with communities who are fighting and protecting those rivers and ecosystems. So what is the responsibility that all of us as humans who are living in this earth have towards our rivers and ecosystems that we are living in and nurtured by? If you both can reflect around some of those elements of, especially how can we strengthen our relationship with rivers and related ecosystems, and how do we and what needs to transform in our struggles to save and sustain these riverine ecosystems and cultures? And then we'll open this up for maybe others to also come in and share their reflections. There are already a lot of questions, I think. So any one of you can go ahead. Maybe Alyen, would you like to go first this time? And then Parineeta.
Okay. So thinking about this and also like I speak mostly from the experiences that I've been through. Immediately when you say rivers, you look at mountains and other natural resources, there's a lot of power struggles, there's a lot of politics, and there's a lot of separation and segregation that happens immediately, where we're actually the ones who are receiving from all of them. But when it comes to all of these resources, then there's lots of fights, let's call them fights afterward, happening because of that. So I think for me, coming from where I'm coming from and what I've experienced, that form of separation, um, that needs to be, I don't know, cleared somehow. It's our waters, it's everybody's waters. And so, how does that balance out? I am not sure, and I do not have the answer for it. But I definitely see this happening where you're also um, connecting one for power, but also your identity to specific rivers. Names are being changed, stories are being changed, lots is happening. So, I think we're not coming from a place of um, oneness, for the lack of a better word. But we are, instead of, say, cleaning the river, fighting for the name of the river, you know? So I feel um, that separation and that kind of a struggle is one of the biggest problems I've personally kind of faced in this. There are many people who all over the world, like, you know, elders and shamans have been in touch, and we all it's one Mother Earth, it's water, you know, everywhere it's water, it's forests, and but then I see this other side, and I do not know how to address this, but I definitely see this as a huge like a blockage to moving forward.
Thanks, Alyen. Parineeta, would you like to?
So, you know, right now, I think Santosh is a part of this discussion also. And when you talked about being connected with the river and how can that happen and how can this distance be bridged and the gap be, how can we come together? Some of the best examples today in an urban setting, of course, because it's very different in the mountains or in Kerala or in Sundarbans, it's very different. But especially in the urban settings, some of the best examples of how can people be reconnected with rivers comes from Pune, comes from Jeevit Nadi, comes from Pune River Revival, which is a huge group. Now, just like you cannot ask a question of what has been the impact, because the fact that despite Jeevit Nadi and Pune River Revival being working for so many years, not much has changed on ground for Pune rivers, is an indictment not about these groups, but about how big the governance challenges are in front of us. Even when 5,000 people march for riparian forests, the forests are still not saved completely right now. So this is passing a judgment not on the groups or the people, but on the kind of system that we are actually pitted against. Having said that, I think in urban areas, it has been eye-opening for me personally to see how, because yes, I mean, many of my friends have been telling me that it's very difficult to change anyone's mind once they cross the age of about 25. And I sort of believe it, and uh, it's the youth and the children who can change it. And what do they have in front of them? I had very beautiful Godavari. I had those memories with me. Uh, but what is the living memory of the generation on which we bank so much now? Their living memories have been sewage-filled rivers and floods and droughts and conflicts. And whenever you say rivers, a conflict comes in mind in this way or that way, and that has been a problem. At the same time, I saw the same school kids and college children fall in love with very polluted rivers in Pune. Rivers were facing lots of issues, which is possibly more than what we can say for our generation, because we might have just, balked at the whole suggestion, but these people have. And so I think there are new ways to connect with the river and um, and the watershed in your backyard. I come from a place where one man is struggling and fighting to save one urban stream, which is right now surrounded by urban garbage and sewage. And everyone has these examples. So the connection is almost everywhere, in almost all cities, no matter how bad the situation is. Uh, we also need more of uh, so Manoj Mishra ji always used to say this, that what is river education or river science called? Is there even a name for river science? He always raised this question, which was very important, I think. We don't even know, is there a school which teaches us about rivers? I just my relatives are here who are very much into all the new age narratives. They love to look at River Saraswati's revival yesterday. And I was trying to tell them that there are real rivers which are dying. Saraswati is a mythical river. We may or may not find it. But it is actually being put into school curriculums. When how to save a river, what is a river, what are the stories of the river next to you is something which is not a part of curriculum. It is not something that we are teaching our kids and the younger generation. Or honestly, we also don't know it so much, right? I don't know the stories of Mula, Mutha, or Godavari as much as I would. So I think a connection is built, and I'm right now in a basin, Colorado. It's a different Colorado basin, but the other Colorado in California, it was completely dry. Mexico had no water. There was no water reaching the sea. They just released one flood wave. Scientists from across the borders talked. Of course, that was a very different time than what it is right now, the madness that is going on right now. But one flood wave was released from Colorado. And just with one flood wave, cottonwood seeds germinated in the river downstream. I was very touched when I heard that, but the fact is, people who have been working in ecosystem restoration know how soon ecosystems respond. And Robin Kimmerer calls it reciprocity. She says that, uh, again, I'm sorry, it sounds a bit anthropocentric, but it's still, I think it's important to say that when you put in efforts for an ecosystem, the ecosystem responds to you. And you see it in Pune, you see it in Nagpur, you see it in Karnataka, you see in Himachal, Tirthan, which is like, sort of bursting with fish right now. So I think connections can be found, connections can be strengthened. All of that can be done, is being done very effectively by some of the groups. The main problem is we all also have to come together uh, to to talk about the governance of rivers around India. It is something that we have to, as a group, as a community, which most of you around here right now today who are a part of the discussion also are doing, but we should not be losing hope at any time. We should not be also, for example, I still am very involved in concepts like environmental flows, uh, but I realize that such concepts are also can very easily become tools to justify new and new infrastructure. So we also have to be careful about the kind of the narratives, and be very aware that these narratives should not end up being used as tools to justify something. So I would again, sorry, but it's my it's like my agenda. I'm very uh, fanatic about it. Someone said that is Christianity, are there no eco-cultural practices in Christianity? I absolutely did not mean that they are limiting. On the other hand, the thing that I'm trying to say is eco-cultural practices exist as much as there are communities. They are not limited to fewer and fewer religions and groups. On the other hand, they exist as much as there is diversity. You have diverse ways of dealing with rivers, of conversing with rivers. And if these conversations, we somehow make them as platforms, for example, in Maharashtra and in parts of Deccan India, also in Rajasthan, you have this tale of seven sisters of the rivers. Sati Asra. They are seven sisters. They are not benevolent, tame goddesses. They are pretty fiery. They are like sort of थोड़े से mad होते हैं. And they are the goddesses of the river pools, who can bless you, but who can also curse you. But they are not goddesses you can bring to your home. They are goddesses of that particular pool. And everyone, I have seen in Kambaleshwar, I have seen a sheikh woman priestess actually worshipping, or actually performing puja of this river god. And these are the small steps that we have, and they are crumbling. The reason why we need to look at it is because they are crumbling right now. And there is this is time that we sort of build on it, bring people together and communities together. They are together. I think we just need to put the beads and make that garland. So that's it.
Thanks, Parineeta. That's beautiful. So I think one instance I'll share from some of the work that we've been doing in Ladakh around the Indus River. and we're organizing along with Snow Leopard Conservancy, India Trust, and Kalparish these walks along the Indus. And our initial attempt or the objective of those walks was just this that you mentioned, that young Ladakhi students, especially studying in schools and colleges, are not taught about the river as such or their local ecology also. Some of the students who are studying zoology and biology, wildlife sciences, have never gone out to the field to actually look at these wild animals and mammals. So there's something fundamentally wrong in the way we are taught in our colleges and the education system that we have, that actually purposely separates us from our local ecology. And so we don't ever get to know what's around us and what sustains us. And so some of our effort has been towards actually rekindling that relationship and making that connection. And in one of those sessions, we were organizing what we call just creating a space for students to connect to the river and doing river meditation. And before that day, we had done also just garbage cleaning. And this one young girl, and very active, and was not able to connect with all the work and the activities we were doing the earlier day. And by the end of the 6 days, she was literally crying because she had never ever seen how much pollution had happened to the river Indus until she went and picked up all the garbage. And she said she did it for 2 3 hours and it still didn't end. And all these young people were so enraged by what was happening to the river. So one important learning from that experience was that until and unless we see the exploitation that happens also to the ecosystems, we never really understand what it is to pollute also. And so that relationship mending also sometimes happen not just with beautiful experiences, but also the experience of just going and seeing the pollution that has happened to the river, the impact of damming that has happened, the fishes that no more can be found in the river because the water is polluted or much more warmer than before. So I think those experiences change something fundamentally also. Just witnessing the trauma of the natural ecosystems and what is happening and what we are doing to the rivers. So those experiences are very important as well. Well, I think I'll now maybe invite the audience members, and there are many wonderful people here who are working on rivers and with river communities for a long time. And maybe if you have any questions for the three of us, but also just reflections about, say, the questions around rivers governance. Rivers are alive, but also what Parineeta was raising towards the end, that there needs to change something fundamentally in terms of the governance itself. And so if we can build further on into these ideas. Anybody if want to speak up, share some of the thoughts that maybe you have already shared in the chat box. There are many, so it will be difficult for us to find everything. So I'll just invite you to raise your hands and feel free to participate in this conversation.
Srishti, just one note, where we is SP Ravi here?
Oh yeah.
Would like to invite about, yes.
Yes, yes. And Santosh ji also maybe because they were part of two important events. Um, I can't, maybe I'm not. Ravi ji, are you here? And Santosh ji? I...
Yeah,
Yes, I
I'm
think
ready
Santoshi is
for.
here and I'm also
Okay.
very much here.
So maybe one of you could share, and then maybe Ravi ji, why don't you share about the event that you have been organizing, and then maybe Santosh ji. And also welcome to share any thoughts and reflections have on the conversation itself.
Yeah, thank you, Srishti. Uh, and it was, I'm really happy to see Parineeta after a very long time. And it was pure joy listening to her. Before going into the event that we are going to organize, I'll just reflect on a couple of things that has been discussed here. In fact, what I felt was that Parineeta was so positive. Uh, she's so optimistic that it really gives hope to us. In fact, I for myself is really worried about possibilities of rejuvenation, especially with the climate crisis. But you make it feel as if the nature can come back very quickly, and that positive note, I'll try to take it to my heart. Thank you for that. And yes, of course, as we know, rivers are living entities, and more importantly, they are life givers also. And rivers are ecosystems, but they connect different ecosystems also. So they have two specific roles. That is, one as a living entity, and the other one as a life supporter, a life giver. Like that for ecosystem also. Uh, in fact, if I go into specifically into Kerala, that connect with the river system that was actually lost gradually over the last 4 5 decades. There were multiple factors that resulted in this disconnect with the river systems. In fact, some until about 1980, most of the people in Kerala used to bathe and wash their clothes in some of the rivers or streams or ponds, so some external water bodies. But later, that gradually changed due to multiple factors. One was with the Gulf migration, a lot of people uh, who migrated to Gulf countries for livelihood, they came back and they had a lot of money and they were building households different from what used to be built at that time in Kerala. They went for concrete buildings, and those houses were you have attached bathrooms. So that was one of the reasons. Then the sand mining, commercial sand mining in Kerala again, that started around 1975. So very soon the rivers became unsafe for letting children go into the river systems. That was another thing. So such multiple aspects actually gradually pushed people away from rivers, and loss of sand dunes again. People used to uh, hold cultural events. People used to play there or simply spend evening times there. So all these factors gradually made people move away from the river systems, and so the river started deteriorating. The pollution, external pollutants started coming more and more, and people were almost oblivious to these factors. They were unaware of these, and it did not directly touch their heart. So probably we need to, as Parineeta rightly said, the younger generation into the river, more and more into the river. But before that, the rivers have to become safe also. So it's not an easy task, but probably that is the best bet for us.
True.
Now into the event that we are organizing, that is in Kerala, we have been organizing River Day on October 3rd, right from 1999. It is being organized by All Kerala River Protection Council. It's being organized at different river basins each year. In fact, this year we are holding it at our place, that is Chalakudi River. Most of you must be knowing about the Adirapalli waterfalls. That waterfalls is in our river. So we are actually having some events on October 2nd and 3rd, some river march, then uh, uh, oath taking on the banks of river, then a seminar on uh, a river action plan that is being prepared for conservation and rejuvenation of Chalakudi River. So all those events are happening on October 2nd and 3rd. The Chalakudi municipality is also very much involved in this River Day celebration. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Raviji. So much wish we could be there for that river celebration. But all the best for this, and please share some of the photos. Oh, thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Oh,
These
absolutely.
are very false, yeah. Thanks, Ashish. Now I'll welcome Santoshji, and after that we'll open it up for others also to share. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening to everybody. Thanks, Shrishtee, Parineeta, and Alyen for such a beautiful conversation on this International Rivers Day. And it's really uh, like last few days I was in Punjab on the banks of Ravi and saw what all the things it is. And yes, rivers will always be alive. However, we human beings try to bind it, dam it, or constrict it. They are always going to be alive. Basically, I was in Pathankot on the banks of Ravi, and there practically I saw that around 1 kilometer the river course has changed. Only thing is this time it's not a natural change of the course of the by the river, but it was because of the mismanagement of the flow from the dams, the Madhupur and the Ranjit Sagar dam. All of a sudden, when the floods, the water was released, and the river almost for 1 kilometer on the right side, I could see practically. I interacted with the local community over there, the Gujars, 26 houses of the Gujar community, they simply washed away in these floods, but not for any wrong reasons from their side, nor it was the fault of the river. It was a man-made mistake kind of thing. Then afterwards, I went to Gurdaspur and I could relate very well with what Parineeta was saying about River Ravi and Guru Nanak, because I was in Dere Baba Nanak for 3 days, the Kartarpur border on the
Yeah, baat hai. Wonderful.
yeah, and there I was interacting with the principal of the school, which was completely destructed in these floods. And the principal is the 18th descendant of Guru Nanak, and he said that it was this very Dere Baba Nanak was on the banks of Ravi at that time when Guru Nanak used to be here, and on the other bank it was Kartarpur. But somewhere around 45 to 50, 1945 to 1950, the river has changed course, and now it is in Pakistan. So this Kartarpur corridor has been formed recently by our government and Pakistan government. I visited number of villages over there, and the situation was very pathetic. Like in some of the parts, it was almost 10 to 15 feet of water, which was there for 10-15 days. In other parts, 4 to 5 feet. But nowhere I was able to see the river. And finally, then I said to those who were with me that I want to visit the river, actually, the river Ravi. Then they took me to the Kartarpur corridor, and then they showed कि वो जो है ना एक 3-4 किलोमीटर आगे वहाँ जो वो ट्री लाइन दिख रहे उसके उस तरफ वो रिवर है, वो अभी पाकिस्तान में हम वहाँ नहीं जा सकते. So the river doesn't know the boundaries. These boundaries established by we the humans, whether it is the international boundaries, the state boundaries, and the submergence of Ravi, which was in Pakistan at that point, it was almost up to 10 kilometers. So this is kind of a lie. Whatever, the more we try to dam them or restrict them, constrict them, the more they are going to be live. The early we understand these things, and the early the masses, how they will be able to understand. We whatever 40-50 people we are here, we will very well understand. But how the masses will understand these things, and how the bureaucrats and the policy makers will understand these things, is really the very important and crucial question. Thanks.
Thanks, Santoshji. for sharing about your journey and also raising this important question about how do people understand these concerns and these ways that rivers are alive and what needs to happen for that. And sometimes I personally feel that rivers are already making us understand that they're alive, and they will continue to do so if we ignore this matter of life fact that they are alive, and so they tell us in their own ways of their existence and their aliveness and their power also. But let's open up for others also to share. I think for us it would be best if you can raise your hand and then I can invite you one by one. Also, just for everyone's chance, if you can keep your comments brief and short, that would be wonderful. Um, okay, I see Bhargavi's hand. So, Bhargavi, hi, welcome.
Hi, Srishti. Thank you so much. I've been following your work and it gives me a lot of hope because, you represent the next generation and the amount of work you've been doing gives me so much hope. Yeah, that said, thank you for organizing this. Thanks to Parineeta and Alyen for the wonderful insights they brought in. I would like to just share that, in Bangalore also, there is a very small effort where we are trying to see if Rishabhavati and Arkavati can be revived. This is mainly spearheaded by Pani.Earth. I wish Madhuri, who heads the institution, would have been here. I did share this link with her, but she couldn't join for whatever reason. But they've been systematically working with the local panchayats, the various government organizations, and every second Saturday we've been meeting at one particular point on the Vrishabhavati River where people share lived experiences, poems, songs, stories, and a whole lot of activities that kind of energize people and give hope that this can be revived. And of course, a lot of inspiration is drawn from the Kham River. I have not personally seen it, but I've heard a lot about the 20 kilometers of the Kham River being revived in Aurangabad. So, as part of this effort, Pani.Earth has been talking to various government agencies and they've been running this Waterscapes exhibition now. It ran for 3 months from June to September at the Vishwesvaraya Industrial and Technological Museum, where they talk about all the challenges currently Rishabhavati and Arkavati are facing, and which eventually reach Kaveri, and from where Bengaluru draws its water. We talk about all of that. So that exhibition was curated very beautifully, where thousands of school children got a chance to witness the exhibition, be part of workshops, and learn a lot more. It also opened doors to researchers and the general public. Now that exhibition has moved to Science Gallery, Bengaluru, so which is another fantastic place to engage, and they're also holding a whole lot of activities around rivers and reviving of rivers, and the Bengaluru Sustainability Forum plans to take it forward after this. The Science Gallery Bengaluru is going to host this till December, so for solid 3 months. So it's a great initiative, and I think it kind of resonates with everything that was shared today in the conversations. As part of the panel discussions, we've had people who are living by the river come and share their stories. People who have livelihoods along the rivers come and share their stories. So it's been such a rich experience, and I draw a lot of hope from all of that. And thank you so much for organizing this. Yes, you're doing some great work. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhargavi, for sharing that inspiring work that you all been doing. Now, I think Ambika had her hand up. Ambika, if you're still here.
Yeah, I'm here. Um, Actually, I wanted to say children, rivers remind me of children. They're sometimes aggressive, they're sometimes docile. And I've been through almost all the states of our country. I've seen so many rivers around, and every river has a different personality, characteristics, and all that. There's the mighty Brahmaputra and the Jhelum, which goes with such a as if it's dancing. You feel the river is flowing. They are different personalities. That means they are alive. So this is what I just wanted to add to it. And I congratulate all of you for presenting a very beautiful seminar today.
Thanks for sharing that reflection, Ambika. I think I also resonate with that. Sometimes,
Because I was a teacher, so I have taught children all my life. So just retired from job.
okay.
And I could tell from my experience swimming across all the rivers in almost in here. Coming to Pune, I can't even step into the river. That's my biggest agony.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ambika. There were several comments shared by people in the chat box. Also, Hastai, I also see Lalita ji's comments. Anyone wants to share maybe some of your thoughts, reflections, maybe questions? Yes, Lalita ji, go ahead.
Okay, very quickly. I just had a call to say I'm supposed to be on this other Zoom meeting from Sapan, and I had completely mixed up the timing. I'm coming to the conclusion that OA means that one keeps, doing all kinds of things like this. But very quick, one question and a couple of comments. But first of all, congratulations. It has been the most incredible learning for me, and I just want to thank you all very, very much. One question basically is that, after listening to everyone, clearly what we are talking about, I think, is also how do we raise more awareness. At one level, yes, we're talking of education, schools. A lot of you are doing remarkable things. I think my big question is sometimes we don't have the luxury of time. And as many of you have said, nature is already showing us, the kind of impact of the damage and saying, well, of course we are alive, but we can be loving and we can also be destructive. What, if any, interaction has there been with the, shall we say, that the system, whether it's with bureaucrats, whether it's local politicians, whether it's any other of the ministries? Because at one level, I think that interaction with those who are taking many of the decisions today becomes absolutely essential. So that's one, question. I don't know. I'm sure some of you have tried. I know it's probably frustrating. It's difficult, but has there been any effort, and what can we do going forward? My comments, basically, I think I've already put it down there. Clearly, what we are hearing is that we need to be working across not just the state boundaries and borders within the country, but across the region. How do we actually move towards that? Because I think that these rivers, as everyone has said, do not know these boundaries and borders and so on. And I think that if we are ultimately to be able to, respect each other and to build the kind of relationship and peace that we are wanting in this region, it is because of those mountains and rivers and forests and the cultures and the religions and everything that we share. How do we go about that? I think that we need to apply our minds over there. Um, and as I said, going forward, I would like very much, if possible, if we can organize, we've all talked about involving students. We have been having some very interesting interactions with young people across South Asia. Very small, but I think every single one of them, when we ask them the question, if you were prime minister of your country, what would you like to see to build a harmonious and a peaceful South Asia? And I think without exception, everyone from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and India, they talked of having to share as young people a kind of a borderless existence if it's and build those relationships and connections. Secondly, climate and everything that is happening in that area is something that I think that they're ready to work on and to talk about. So is there a way that we can then connect, what's this kind of forum, and so many of you who are working on this in different parts of the country, to really, build on that. That's what I want to say. I'm really sorry. I have to leave now, but I hope to remain in touch. And thank you again for just an absolutely, deeply moving and inspiring session. Thanks.
Thanks, Lalita ji, for those important questions and comments. Alyen, I see your hand up, then the introvert life. And I think also I would like to invite maybe Ashish to share some bits about the South Asia Bioregionalism Working Group in response to Lalita ji's comments about building South Asia level collectives. Okay, Alyen, to you first.
So I've just been listening to everybody doing such beautiful work. So instantly, it's like to have connection and access to also people who have been doing this work, like before us. Uh, I think that I feel is important because a lot of times you've already done something before, and like say we'd want to learn and we'd want to know. So I think it'll be really nice for us to learn from people who've already been doing this for a long time, various aspects of it. I feel that's important, and I feel the need to kind of say, okay, can somebody kind of guide us? You've been doing this for a while. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out.
Yeah, Aliyah, that's a very important point also. Cross learning and learning from each other about these things is also going to give us a lot of hope and continue to work. Um, the introvert life and then Ashish.
Uh, Hello. Hi. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, you are.
Sorry, so I was not able to change my name. So my name is Rahul Ivane, and I'm currently I recently completed my master's from IIT Bombay. So and I'm been following the work of Kalfriksha and Vikalp Sangam. So that is very inspiring for me. So there are a few points that I would like to add to the discussion that have been raised by Parineeta and Alien on this river topic. So this coming from my personal observations and the work that I have been engaged on river rejuvenation in the last semester. So there is a larger confusion, and I think that is a problematic in a sense that how we define river. So during my internship, when I visited Thane, so the channels of or the different channels or the tributaries of Kalu River or the Tarka River, they are often called as Nala. So the very sense that how we define these tributaries who are basically supporting the main channels of a river, and calling them Nala itself is disrespecting to them, and this whole change the perspective of the people towards its conservation. So the naming perfectly, whether it is a nala or whether it is a river or whether it is channel or which stream order it is, and that is a larger topic, I can say. The second thing is largely, even I was engaged with different bureaucrats and government officials, basically who are working in Thane. So my one of the key observation was that they look river as a source of water. So they don't look as an ecological aspect of it. They don't look at they don't look it as an ecological zone, but they rather look at it as a source of natural resource. So that is a river which gives some water, and that's how the whole definition of the river and the whole discourse of the river changes to the economical aspects of it. So how to distribute water, so that is the main concern of the bureaucrats rather than the conservation of the river and maintaining the ever flow of the river streams. So building the dams is one of the clear and the perfect example of how the rivers are commercialized and restricted to its economical definition or its economical perspective. The third point that again comes from the very personal experience. So I'm tribal person. I can identify as I identify myself as a scheduled tribe from Baitul district of Madhya Pradesh. And since last 15 years, if I observe, then I can say that the river that was flowing from my village is no longer flowing now. So this is hardly it is it which was a perennial few years back is now uh, coming to just monsoon river now. So that has been changed completely. And again, with the development discourse that this our country is going on, or even at the world level, that saying that there are challenges in terms of like we look largely different urban based models as in development. So the employment, the aspects of employment changes, and this largely disconnects the tribals with the nature. So they don't. So they earlier they used to connect with the river for their livelihoods, but now they are completely independent of the rivers for their livelihood, and they don't understand the role of it in their lives. So it does not make them to like it does not influence them to even to understand their the role of rivers in their lives, and so they don't bother even if the river is ever flowing or not. So these are the key things that I would like to point it out. And thank you. It's
Thank,
been a wonderful discussion.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, Ashish, you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think I would echo what Lalita ji said about this being a scintillating and very exciting conversation. In just two or three points. One is, of course, it reminded me of, I think, about 40 years back when I had gone for this Adivasi movement against the Bhopalpatnam and Nichapalli dams on the Indravati River in Gadchiroli district in Maharashtra, and how their narrative was about challenging the government, saying that you think of the river as megawatts and power. For us, the river is our mother. And it was such a incredible civilizational sort of clash in some sense. And this is exactly what I think all three of you have also been talking about. Um, just sharing about the South Asia bioregionalism group. So the challenge that Lalita ji was talking about, how does one share across borders? South Asian nation state borders, which have cut rivers and divided us and enabled people to make some countries to make dams which create problems downstream, etc. That so the South Asia Bioregionalism Working Group, I've put a link in the chat, is trying to at least reimagine what South Asia could look like from the perspective of recreating, regenerating, or reviving both biological, ecological, and cultural and economic connections beyond the borders. So maybe if anybody from here in the audience wants to join that effort, then please let us know or put your name in the chat. Um, 2 points, and it'd be nice to hear any of you to sort of respond on this. One is that can we go beyond personhood into riverhood so that we actually remove the human-centric language and symbolism of personhood? Of course, it's still a symbol, but it's also maybe one powerful way of signaling that humans are not at the center of everything. And secondly, like the Forest Rights Act, with whatever limited capacity it has for forest dwelling communities to reclaim their collective rights over forests and be able to govern them and protect them, can we think of, or maybe if somebody has already thought of it, you can tell me, river communities or riverine communities rights act? This is, of course, the rights of rivers, but also the rights of riverine communities to then be involved in a central way in their management, use, and protection. I don't know if anybody's thought of that, but what do you people think about that? Thanks.
Thanks, Ashish. Any Parineeta, Alyen, and I can of course come in, but also anybody else also if has thoughts and reflections about some of these things, please feel free to raise your hands and come in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. Important points, especially what you said about River Communities Act, or the problem, as we all know, but I would still like to highlight it because more the said about it, the better it is, especially about the fisher folk and why, just like forest communities are important for the existence of forest. It's not just that the communities depend on the forests. In many ways, forests depend on the communities. The same is true with riverine communities, especially when it comes to communities like fisher folk, because fisher folk are, in many senses, canaries in the coal mine. When riverine fish is not available, and I would just very quickly would like to highlight it that India is the second largest producer of inland fish, freshwater fish in the world. So when you hear this, you think that, oh, this is fantastic. But nearly 90% of that inland fisheries production is coming from Andhra Pradesh. Even Kolkata and Guwahati now get riverine fish from Andhra Pradesh, which are raised in fish farms with antibiotics, which is again taking water from the river. And so it has no connection with the ecosystems. The fisheries departments in these are also the problems that I'm highlighting, but I guess this is important that fisheries department just a week ago, Himachal Pradesh Fisheries Department received some sort of a prize, a gold award for its fisheries conservation. Himachal Pradesh Fisheries Department has been more or less single-handedly responsible for giving licenses for hydropower dams to kill the river and sow the fish. And that is receiving award from an agency which wrote a book praising the current prime minister. So we all know where these lines are leading us to. The problem is with riverine fisherfolk communities, we have about 10 million riverine fisherfolk, and if at all, and because they depend on flowing rivers and not fish farms or dams, which again have a completely different ownership regime than freshwater fisheries. These people are not vote banks. They are not powerful. They are on the fringes of the entire, our canvas. But if riverine fisherfolk are in some ways they have a right on a flowing river, and their fisheries rights on the river are acknowledged, like it happened in some places in Narmada near Omkareshwar Dam, then it can not only save riverine fish species, but riverine fish species like Hilsa or like Mahasir, they need flowing rivers, they need dissolved oxygen, they need riparian forests, they need lateral and longitudinal connectivity of the river system. In short, riverine communities depend on healthy functioning rivers. So if we are able to support riverine communities, we would be, there's a lot to do with the rivers. So I just completely second that suggestion. Thanks.
Thanks, Parineeta. Um, I wonder if anyone else wants to come in. Alyen, in case you want to add something specific to this.
Yeah, I can say.
I Who is that? Sorry, I can't see
I
the.
am Guman Singh from Himachal Pradesh.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Guman.
Yeah, Ashish was saying that we must claim these rivers under FRA. Of course, we have done it in Tirthan River, and in GHHP, all title has been issued to the people here. That's one thing. Secondly, few days back, on I think 20th of this month, we had been a festival of Tirthan Puja. One day we were celebrating puja, and one day a seminar on this conservation issue. That's then there is a comment that Himachal Pradesh Fishery Department have issued all certificate to the dams. Of course, they have done it. They have no strength to oppose things. We know it. We are worried of that. Now our only river after we have saved this Tirthan. And here, local fishery department, of course, supported at that time because of there is a glamorous issue of conserving the trout. That's what I think. They claim that we have done something lot, but that's only in Tirthan. The basic problem is that now they are going to dam Chinab. We were there last 2 months back. I was there in whole of the basin, and we had been rallying the big rally in Laos opposing the dams. Still, the projects are halted. I don't know what happen in future. That's the situation, but I think that people resistance is very necessary, and I personally and our organizations and the fight is only for that. And we are doing, we are fighting. Last year, we also again fought for this a small river which was diverted to the cement plant of Adani. We fought that issue also in Bilaspur district. So that's what we are doing it, but we all can contribute. I think so. We should do. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Gumanji, first of all, about your important work, the resistance work that you're doing, and celebratory work also. And also a reminder that what protects us, we have to protect that as well. And so it's our responsibility also to do this resistant work and, strengthen each other's struggle of protection and conservation. Um, I Meera suggested that Medatai could share about river protection bill. Medatai, are you here? Can you share? That would be wonderful. If you can share briefly about the river protection bill and what in it. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
It's a beautiful discussion and very powerful presentations by Parineeta and all. I would say that uh, rivers are under enormous attack, and we must really, call it violence and really follow with the Gandhi Jayanti in the doorstep the truth and non-violence, even to save the rivers. It is very much necessary to protect the rivers by keeping them free flowing. And hence the big dams, which now the USA has changed its paradigm and also decommissioned more than 1900 dams, and European countries 4000 and more dams. And now the European Commission or Parliament, I think, has taken a decision to free, 25,000 kilometer long rivers by removing all the obstacles. I think we must really follow that. So नदियों को अविरल बहने दो और दूसरा नदियों को निर्मल रहने दो. The pollution is a very, very important aspect that is really killing the rivers, the water, the Jala Sampada and all. So it is necessary to really not only leave it to the Pollution Control Board, but we ourselves, the people in the river valley, take a position on how the industries should be prevented from throwing their effluents. There are no sewage treatment plants. So how that is really affecting the rivers very, very seriously. And also the ajaivik kheti, the inorganic agriculture is also contributing to the same. And there is very, very serious issue of illegal sand mining. I'm saying illegal because, as you said, Srishti, that there are laws, but the environmental law regime is really bypassed now, and there is no real intervention on behalf of the Ministry of Environment or the SIA, the state level agency, or even the Pollution Control Board, which has become political control board. So it is necessary that we point out all these things. And another thing is now the origins of rivers. in the hills and mountain ranges, whether Himalayas or Niyamgiri like Parbat or even the Satpuras, is very, very seriously affected with mining, with so-called development projects and so on. So what is happening in Himalaya, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Arunachal Pradesh and all. And also the same thing is happening in every river valley almost, wherever this thing. So the land, water, forest, the whole ecosystem, and no inter-river basin transfer. It has to be intra-river basin, river as an entity, and river basin as the macro unit. But starting with the micro unit and going up to that micro unit also has to follow the principle of subsidiarity, and that is not happening. The uh, the three-tier local self-government, beautiful title, but that is not followed. The rights and freedom and also the um, powers given to them are really impinged upon. So it is very necessary that rivers as a part of the ecosystem needs to be. So the पूजन नमन सब करते हैं पर मनन नहीं करते हैं नदियों के बारे में, यही हमको दिखाई देता है. So in order to really organize the riverine communities, we must have the Nadi Jod and Nadi Ghati Jod, but not the river linking projects. So it is very, very necessary that within a river valley, river basin, we really organize uh, every way coming together and, saving our own mother river. So that kind of approach and the paradigm is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, drinking water, even the payajal, is very badly affected. And it is affecting the health with a number of diseases coming up due to the polluted drinking water. And whenever we have tasted Narmada water, it has come out to be non-potable with chloroform, with nitrates, with ammonia, everything is. So itna bada Narmada pujan ye karte hain, but people don't really. So it is like, neglecting our own mother, and that is a very, very serious issue. And the sea ingress is also taking place everywhere, that I think is talked about. So I don't need to really, but in Narmada also 60 kilometers ingress has taken place since 2013. And so the not allowing the river to flow up to the sea, and not only the estuary but the whole of the river is affected due to that. So the e-flow concept is, talked about a lot, but that is also not really properly, decided about how much is required to be flowing as e-flow. But then, as someone said rightly, that with e-flow granted, we can't give consent to the dams to be built because that is in the downstream of the dam. We should have the continuous free flow of the river. Otherwise, the Alaknanda, Bhagirathi, Mandakini of Ganga are all damaged and spoiled. And the roads and railways. So what should happen and not happen in the directly draining catchment needs to be taken a position on. So no development zones are necessary, and directly draining catchment should not be affected with riverfront kind of projects, which really kill the green cover and destroy the green cover, but also, build and this thing. So our river bill is for protection and rejuvenation of rivers, and this special law is necessary. uh, I don't think private bills are immediately taken for discussion in the parliaments in India, but still we must really make that as a basis for the overall dialogue and debate, I would say, that should take place within the parliament. But then, much more than the parliament, we also need to really educate and motivate the people from the Gram Sabha level, from the grassroots level. So I think at both the fronts, if we move forward, only we can save the river, because Musi is in danger. Himachal Pradesh rivers are in danger. Satluj is totally polluted. Uh, Kaveri, Krishna, all the interstate conflicts are really becoming very serious. The Mulla Periyar kind of this thing. And when the alternatives are suggested also, the state, the governments are not taking, a conscious consideration of that and not having a dialogue. So it is the people to people dialogue, even across the interstate rivers, is a must. And we should plan all such programs, which our Nadi Ghati Manch of NAPM has been always thinking about. Also have People's Tribunal, as we had recently, after 40 years of Narmada movement in Badwani, in Narmada, wherever there is conflict, wherever there are serious impacts, and so on. Thank you, and sorry for taking longer time, Srishti.
Thanks for sharing, Medaji. Every point you made was
Yes.
for us to hear. So thanks for making those points. I was gonna maybe ask Himanshu ji to maybe come and make a small intervention, and then we will try to wrap this conversation up. I don't know if Himanshu ji is still here. Oh, Himanshu Oh, I didn't see it. There are two Himanshus. Okay.
I think he's in a call right now.
Oh,
He's in a call, so maybe, yeah.
okay. So, I would then request Parineeta, Alyen, if you have any concluding remarks to make, and if anyone else wants to come in, this is your time. Else we'll conclude today's session. Over to you, Parineeta and Alyen, if you want to say something after listening to everyone's comments. And yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I wish Himanshu could join. Let us hope that he can possibly, have the last minute or so. But yeah, so thank you so much, Medhatai. We cannot say Medhatai had when I was in school. Medhatai had written a poem about a river in Marathi, and in it she had said that you have given away your waters to everyone, but please keep at least a drop for yourself, for the river. And I was in school at that time. I was so surprised reading that yes, possibly the river needs water for herself, or uh, so so many so many ways that uh, people like Medhatai, Himanshu, Ashish, so many times that they can influence younger minds. I have nothing to add. Thank you so much for actually putting this together. I'm only hoping that we all also come together and look at how rivers are being respected in smaller ecosystem specific ways around around ourselves. It might be a pond, it might be a river origin that is protected. And for me, the touchstone of river conservation practice community based is that it is not included in the institutionalized religion. I'm sorry, and it has not nothing to do with a specific religion. But when it is a community based practice tied to a specific place, then that is something that is worth protecting and worth giving voice to. So thank you so. And also this last point about what Ashish said, that from personhood can we have this discussion about riverhood. I was very relieved to also listen to that, because having said and done, whatever that we've discussed right now, I still feel that it is a bit of a often overreaching for humans to talk in the voice of rivers. I find it very uncomfortable. But if we are talking about riverhoods, then possibly we are better placed in a much more humbler, smaller, and a more appropriate position. So I would just like to second that. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks, Parineeta. Alyen?
I think I'm just feeling really grateful to hear and know from so many people who've been doing such beautiful and really intense work from their hearts and their souls. From my side, I just feel I still would like say that spending time remembering and kind of getting the masses into more awareness and connection, because I think also strength lies in numbers, and there are few of us who are connected and who have access and the privilege to be in these spaces to talk about it, but to kind of reach and touch and connect with a larger number of people. I think that's for me because I feel privileged to be here, but then I would hear it, and a few of us would. But then, to be able to access more people to have access to this, and yeah, I think that would be really nice. That's what I feel. But definitely feeling so grateful, like I'm learning a lot, so I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alyen. And we learned a lot from you also about your work and your practices, and connecting with the river Tista and the work that you do. Thanks to both of you for being here and all the people who joined us today for bringing your reflections, your work, your wisdom also to this conversation. Rivers don't necessarily need us to protect them, but it is the work that we must do as responsible children who are being nurtured by rivers all the time. So I hope we all keep up the important work that all of us are doing and also support each other. And as Medhatai said, that work towards actually going to Gram Sabhas, urban bodies and local bodies, to really talk about river protection and building from there about smaller ecosystems. So more power to all the work that everyone is doing, and more power to um, uh, rivers. And yeah, wonderful to host this session as well with all of you. And thanks from Nadi Ghati Manch, Vikalp Sangam, National Alliance for People's Movement for for all the work that went behind this, but also all of you to join this conversation. And stay tuned in case you're more interested into these conversation. You can put in your emails here and you can be added. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.
Bye. Biodiversity should be preserved.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.